Everything looks wrong. Even the ocean doesn't look normal." Those were the final words transmitted over the radio on December 5th, 1945. They came from Charles Taylor, a U.S. Navy flight leader with years of experience conducting routine training missions over the Atlantic. The weather was calm. The exercise was standard. Everything unfolded exactly as planned until the radio went silent. Five military aircraft vanished without leaving a trace. And as if that disappearance weren't enough, the aircraft sent to search for Flight 19 also vanished just 20 minutes after takeoff, transforming what should have been a routine accident into something far harder to explain. Only later would events like this be pulled into a much larger story, one tied not to official borders or maps, but to an invisible stretch of ocean that would come to absorb real-world disappearances, ghost tales, UFO sightings, and even legends of lost civilizations like Atlantis. What is it about these waters? How could 20 planes, 50 ships, and hundreds of people vanish in a place the U.S. government doesn't even officially recognize? Are these events merely coincidences of location? Or is something more unsettling unfolding beneath the surface? I'm James Carter, and you're watching True Earth. In this video, we're not here to sell legends or scare stories. We're here to understand how a normal stretch of ocean, with no borders, no warning signs, came to be feared around the world. Origins and timeline of the myth. It all began more than half a millennium ago. In 1492, Christopher Columbus set sail from Spain with 3 ships, searching for a western route to Asia. After 10 weeks crossing the Atlantic, he sailed through the Sargasso Sea, passing directly through the heart of what would later be known as the Bermuda Triangle. In September of that year, Columbus noted something strange in his log. On this day, at the beginning of night, the compasses northwested, and in the morning, they northeast somewhat. Days later, he observed the sea rising to great heights, and most curiously, described seeing a light on the horizon, like a candle flickering in the distance. Put yourself in their shoes. No GPS, no satellite maps, just the endless, crushing dark of the open ocean. A strange light, or a spinning needle, wasn't just a technical glitch. It was terrifying. To them, the forces of physics took the shape of monsters. It's easy to see how stories like these would begin to gather intrigue. So what was actually happening? Columbus had crossed the Agonic Line, where magnetic north and true north align, causing compasses to behave differently on either side. Columbus simply didn't understand magnetic declination, a concept that wouldn't be properly explained until Edmund Halley's work in the early 1700s. His compass wasn't malfunctioning. It was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. Columbus returned to tell the tale, but not everyone who sailed these waters would be so fortunate. In the early 1600s, a ship from England named Sea Venture set off to resupply the failing colony at Jamestown. Just off the coast of Bermuda, the fleet sailed straight into a hurricane, leaving the ship destroyed and the crew marooned. The incident fit the familiar pattern of ships caught in Atlantic hurricanes. But it did something important. It left an impression. On its own, the shipwreck might have faded into history, until it found its way into the imagination of William Shakespeare. In The Tempest, Bermuda is cast as a vexed or cursed place, and slowly, a reputation began to take shape. Fast forward to 1881. The cargo ship Ellen Austin reportedly found a drifting, abandoned vessel in the Sargasso Sea. The captain sent a crew aboard to salvage it. But after a storm separated the ships, the strange vessel was found again, completely empty. The crew had vanished. Determined, the captain sent a second team aboard. But then a thick fog rolled in, and when it lifted, the ship was gone for good, taking the second crew with it. It sounds like the perfect ghost story, doesn't it? But here's the twist. It never happened. Lloyd's of London records show the Ellen Austin's journey was completely uneventful. The story appears to have been fabricated years later, likely for popular publication. Not every story was invented. Now compare that to a real ghost ship mystery from 9 years earlier. On December 4th, 1872, a ship called the Mary Celeste was found drifting between the Azores and Portugal. There was no crew on board, and the lifeboat was missing, yet the cargo remained intact. The last log entry was dated November 25th, 9 days earlier. An examination of the ship later suggested an orderly departure, with no signs of violence. It's a real, well-documented mystery that occurred in the eastern Atlantic, far from the Triangle's boundaries. Over time, the facts didn't matter. The Mary Celeste was pulled into the Triangle's orbit simply because it made for a better story. Then came March 1918. The USS Cyclops, a 542-foot Navy cargo ship carrying over 300 men and 10,000 tons of manganese ore, left Rio de Janeiro bound for Baltimore, made an unplanned stop in Barbados, and was never seen again. The ship never sent an SOS distress call, despite being equipped to do so. An extensive search found no wreckage. It remains the largest loss of life in U.S. naval history, not directly related to combat. President Woodrow Wilson said, "Only God and the sea know what happened to the great ship." It's a poetic but haunting quote, an admission of total helplessness. A magazine in 1920 described it this way: "She disappeared as though some gigantic monster of the sea had grabbed her, men and all, and sent her into the depths of the ocean." In 1941, 2 of the Cyclops' sister ships vanished along nearly the same route. There are plausible explanations. The ship was likely overloaded with manganese ore and extremely heavy cargo, making structural failure a real possibility, especially under recorded storm conditions. And if the Cyclops sank anywhere near the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point in the Atlantic at over 8 kilometers, recovering wreckage in 1918 would have been impossible. Searches were limited to surface patrols, with no sonar and no deep-diving submarines, so the absence of wreckage does not point to anything supernatural. But the biggest blow to the Triangle's reputation came on December 5th, 1945. 5 Navy TBM Avenger torpedo bombers carrying 14 crew members took off from Fort Lauderdale on what was meant to be a routine training mission, led by Lieutenant Charles Taylor. Then things went wrong. Taylor reported that his compass was malfunctioning and radioed the control tower. "We cannot be sure where we are." 20 minutes later, for reasons still unclear, command was transferred, and the final transmission followed. "It looks like we are entering white water. We are completely lost." The planes continued flying until fuel ran low, and they were forced to ditch at sea. That same day, a rescue aircraft carrying 13 crew members also vanished. After searching for a full week and finding nothing, the official Navy report concluded it was as if they had flown to Mars. But here is what actually happened. Transcript analysis shows that Taylor believed he was flying over the Florida Keys, when in reality he was far to the southeast, near an island in the Bahamas. Instead of turning west toward Florida, he continued flying east, deeper into the Atlantic. According to Australian scientist Carl Kruszelnicki, Taylor had become lost on previous training flights as well. This was human error, not something supernatural. But this incident was about to become something else entirely. Symbolic proof of the Triangle's dangers. Birth of a legend, so many incidents had happened in such a small area, yet no one had linked them together or given the place a name. Then, in February 1964, an American writer named Vincent Gaddis published an article in Argosy magazine titled "The Deadly Bermuda Triangle." He outlined 3 connecting points: Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. He gathered scattered disappearances and framed them as a single, unified mystery. But the myth truly exploded a decade later with Charles Berlitz's book. Selling more than 20 million copies, Berlitz set aside weather and navigation errors and instead wove theories of aliens, Atlantis, and forces beyond science. From there, Hollywood and the media jumped in. Why? Because of a simple economic truth. Truth is boring, but fear is profitable. The Bermuda Triangle was no longer just a geographic region. It had become a billion-dollar entertainment industry. So if we strip away the spectacle and mythology, what does science actually find beneath these waters? Plausible explanations. Let me start with the geography. About 120 kilometers north of Puerto Rico lies the Puerto Rico Trench, stretching 1,750 kilometers long and plunging to 8,380 meters at its deepest point, the Milwaukee Depth. To put that in perspective, if you dropped Mount Everest into it, the peak would still be 400 meters underwater. The pressure at the bottom exceeds 800 atmospheres, like having 300 elephants standing on a dinner plate. When the USS Cyclops disappeared in 1918, submarines could dive no deeper than 600 meters, while the trench reaches 14 times that depth. If it sank there, recovery lay far beyond the reach of early 20th century technology. The trench also sits on a 70-million-year-old fault system that generates underwater earthquakes, triggering sudden water displacement, and rogue waves capable of swamping ships without warning. Sediments accumulated over millions of years could theoretically trap methane, though no explosions have ever been documented here. The Puerto Rico Trench explains some mysteries, but it doesn't make the Triangle special. Trenches like the Mariana, which reaches 11 kilometers, the Java, and the Peru-Chile all exist without any curse attached. From a weather perspective, the Bermuda Triangle lies directly in the path of most Atlantic hurricanes. Florida, located nearby, has been hit more than any other U.S. state, with only 18 hurricane-free seasons since 1851. Puerto Rico averages 4 to 5 hurricanes per year, while Bermuda sees a damaging cyclone every 6 to 7 years. Before the 1900s, there was no forecasting, meaning ships sailed directly into storms with no warning. Even today, with all our tracking technology, hurricanes still cause enormous destruction. Imagine what it was like when we couldn't see them coming. The Gulf Stream adds another challenge, racing along the western edge at speeds reaching 5 knots per hour in some areas, roughly 300 times faster than the Amazon River. For inexperienced sailors, this creates extreme navigational difficulties and can sweep vessels hundreds of miles off course while erasing evidence of disasters. According to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, environmental considerations like these can explain many, if not most, of the disappearances in this region. Rogue waves, though rare at about 1 in every 10,000 waves, can reach 30 meters in height. The first recorded by instruments was the Dropner wave in the North Sea on January 1, 1995, measuring 26 meters tall. They're sudden, unpredictable, and can be triggered by underwater seismic activity from fault systems like the one beneath the Puerto Rico Trench. But they happen worldwide, not just here. The combination of hurricanes, the Gulf Stream, and occasional rogue waves does create elevated risk. But it's risk that exists in many ocean regions. Now to the compass theory. The claim is that the triangle is one of only 2 places where compasses point to true north instead of magnetic north, implying some unique magnetic anomaly. In reality, there is an imaginary line called the agonic line, where magnetic north and true north align, and it drifts westward at about 0.2 degrees per year. Navigators compensate for this using basic math. The formula is simple. True bearing equals magnetic bearing plus magnetic declination. For example, if your magnetic bearing is 45 degrees east and the declination in the Bermuda region is 5 degrees west, which is -5, your true bearing is 40 degrees east. It's simple addition and subtraction, taught in every navigation course. So let's look at Flight 19 again with fresh eyes. Taylor's instruments were functioning normally. The breakdown occurred in navigation and decision-making. If true magnetic anomalies existed here, we'd see systematic compass failures across hundreds of voyages, not isolated incidents traced to mistakes. Yet the myth persists, proving the myth was never based on actual geography. Data-driven debunking. The truth. Science explains how things happen, but data tells us how often. Let's look at the numbers, because numbers don't lie. Let's start with a modern case that perfectly illustrates why no wreckage found doesn't mean mystery. On June 1st, 2009, Air France, Flight 447, an Airbus A330 carrying 228 people from Rio to Paris, crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. This was a modern aircraft with GPS tracking, automated systems that sent 24 error messages before impact, and a precisely recorded last position. And yet, finding the wreckage took nearly 2 years, and 3 failed search missions costing over 21 million euros. The 4th mission in March 2011 finally succeeded, using robot submarines from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, the team that found the Titanic. They searched a 75-kilometer radius at depths between 3.8 and 4 kilometers. As one searcher described it, like looking for a needle in a field of haystacks. When they found it, the fuselage was largely intact, bodies still in seats, debris concentrated in one zone. The operation cost 26.6 million euros, took nearly 2 years, and relied on 2009-era technology and GPS coordinates. Now consider the USS Cyclops in 1918, with no radio, no last position, and search technology limited to surface observation. If it sank near the Puerto Rico Trench at 8.4 kilometers deep, twice the depth of Air France's wreckage, recovery wasn't just difficult, it was impossible. The same applies to Flight 19 in 1945, when sonar was primitive and submarines couldn't reach 600 meters. The absence of wreckage shows how difficult deep ocean searches remain, even with modern technology. The ocean is vast, and we are small. By every measurable metric, the Bermuda Triangle behaves like any other heavily trafficked ocean region. It doesn't even make the top 10 most dangerous ocean regions in the world. Between 1982 and 2015, researchers analyzed over 150,000 maritime incident records worldwide. Of roughly 9,000 analyzable incidents, 361 occurred in the Bermuda Triangle, just 4%. The critical finding: not a single incident was classified as a disappearance in the Triangle between 1982 and 2015. In 2021, Lloyd's List analyzed global shipping data and found that 1.88% of all vessels worldwide experienced casualties during their voyage. In the Bermuda Triangle, out of 8,634 boats that passed through, only 2 experienced casualties. a rate of 0.02%. You are statistically more likely to get into an accident pulling out of your driveway than sailing through these waters. The most dangerous waters are in Southeast Asia and the Mediterranean, not here. The U.S. Board of Geographic Names doesn't even recognize the triangle exists. Aviation data mirrors this. The National Transportation Safety Board tracks every accident from 1962 to present. Most incidents occurred during takeoff and landing, not mid-flight. Since 1965, exactly one incident has occurred over Bermuda, JetBlue Flight November 913. Juliet Bravo experienced severe turbulence, causing one injury. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard, with decades of experience operating here, state it plainly.
Wow. Oh man, I got it 60.
There are no supernatural explanations for disasters at sea. Nature and human fallibility, they say, outdo the most incredulous science fiction. But if the evidence is this clear, why do millions still believe? Perhaps because a world with monsters is more exciting than a world with just math. The answer lies not in the ocean, but in human psychology and economics. Why do we believe? A psychiatrist might tell you it comes down to three things: mistrust, misinformation, and motivated reasoning. Falling for these patterns isn't about stupidity or mental illness. It's universal human vulnerability. Our brains are wired to see monsters in the shadows. The first factor is mistrust. When answers are uncertain, we rely on trust. Many dismiss the U.S. Navy or Lloyd's of London as establishment cover-ups, while trusting figures like Charles Berlitz or YouTube conspiracy channels that promise hidden truths. This intensified after Watergate in the 1970s, when it was revealed that the U.S. government had lied to the public and trust in official institutions collapsed. The second is misinformation and disinformation. This is the global version of the telephone game. A ship breaks down in 1880, and through 10 retellings, it becomes a ghost ship. By the 100th retelling, it's an alien abduction. The Ellen Austin was repeated as fact, despite being fabricated. The Mary Celeste was retroactively placed into the triangle. Claims about compass anomalies ignored the moving agonic line. Berlitz's book amplified these distortions, selectively choosing incidents while ignoring contradictions, selling mystery instead of accuracy. Modern algorithms now accelerate this process, rewarding engagement over truth. The third is motivated reasoning. Think of sports fans. When the referee calls against your team, he's blind. Against the opponent, he's brilliant. Those who see themselves as free thinkers dismiss official evidence by default while embracing mystery. Algorithms reinforce this, filtering out counter-evidence until belief becomes immune to facts. Economics strengthens the cycle. Berlitz made millions from book sales. Media companies profit from sensational content. Bermuda's tourism industry generated $815 million in 2022, supporting nearly 3,000 jobs and 13.6% of government revenue. They can't fully debunk the myth without stripping away its mystique. It's like a haunted house at an amusement park. Turn on the lights and reveal the trick, and no one buys tickets. It's not a grand conspiracy, folks. It's just business. This is why facts alone rarely change minds. The same data gets interpreted differently based on who we trust and how our identity shapes our reasoning. We all fall victim to this. So how did an ordinary patch of ocean become the world's most infamous mystery? Through a perfect storm of real tragedies, misunderstood science, media sensationalism, and human psychology. The Bermuda Triangle reveals far more about human storytelling than about the ocean itself. It's a patch of ocean like any other, actually safer than most, according to the data. What separates those who see through myths isn't intelligence, but a willingness to ask simple questions. Who is making the claim? What is their evidence? And who benefits if we believe it? The triangle isn't cursed, but our tendency to trust exciting stories over data is a very real danger. The myth persists because it taps into something deeply human. Our love of mystery, distrust of authority, desire to believe there's more to the world. The irony is that the real ocean is far more fascinating than the myth ever was. The Puerto Rico Trench, 8.4 kilometers deep and 70 million years old. Air France 447, wreckage preserved intact at 4 kilometers for 2 years. The ocean is mysterious, just not in the way Berlitz claimed. The Bermuda Triangle mystery is solved, not by uncovering monsters, but by understanding ourselves. But what other mysteries in our world are just waiting for us to look at the data